get you to see inside the pan, and I don't know if that can happen with the light on. So here we go. The first step of my sauce, of my cheese sauce, is going to be equal parts of butter and flour. This is called a roux when you do fat, butter or oil, could be your fat, and flour together. And I'm just going to eyeball the flour, so I have 2 tablespoons of it. Match my 2 tablespoons of butter. So I'm going to let the butter melt, and it's going to cook up toast up the flour as well, and we're going to cook those 2 things together. So here it's starting to melt. Sometimes this pan takes a little while to heat up because it's the cast iron, but you can see the butter starting to melt. It's making like a paste with the flour, and I want to cook it until that butter's all the way melted and my flour is sort of like toasty brown. It should be like a paste in the bottom there, and I want it to get a little bit brown. So I'm just gonna let it hang out here. My butter's almost melted. You can see how it kind of turned from like crumbly into this paste. Do you see that? Now, what this roux is going to do, it rhymes. The roux is the thickening agent in your sauce. So this flour and butter mixture, as it gets incorporated into the milk, which I'm going to add next, is going to thicken that milk and make it sauce-like. So, here we go. So it's starting to bubble now. I don't know if you can see from where you are. It's bubbling a little bit and it's starting to toast up. So that's what we're looking for. Eek, sorry. You want to kind of smell the sweetness of the butter coming out of the pan. Now again, I'm not making a ton of this. If you were going to make more, you can obviously do more flour and butter together and more milk and all of that. And judging how much roux I have and how much cheese I have sitting next to me, I might not need all of that, but we'll see. Alright, so I'm going to let this go a couple more minutes until it's nice and toasty, and then we'll add the milk. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can tell, but the color has changed a little bit. It's a little bit darker. It took a little while to get there, but you really want to cook that flour. You don't want to have raw flour in there. The raw flour flavor is pretty gross. So this is my roux, nice and cooked up. You could even go a little longer, but my vegetables, my soup, or the vegetables in the broth is almost ready, so we're going to move this step on. So for the next part, you're going to do milk. I'm going to maybe add a cup of milk to this. I'm just going to eyeball it because that's what I do. But if you had a recipe, it would tell you specific amounts. The other thing I'm going to need is a whisk to whisk the flour into the milk mixture. This is the kind that you probably have at home that you could use. I don't like mine, so I'm just going to use this little one that I have, sort of the same thing, but a little different. So I'm going to just add the milk. Like I said, I'm adding about a cup to it. And then I'm just going to whisk it in. And at this point, we have to be patient because we just want it to turn into a nice thick sauce. I'm just going to add a little more. So I turned my temperature down on my stove. I'm at medium. I would go medium, medium, low if you could, because you don't want to overcook dairy. So when you're working with milk, the proteins in the milk, if you heat it up too fast or too high, the proteins in the milk will sink. And what happens when they sink is they'll burn to the bottom of the pan, which is not ideal. The other thing that happens is it'll separate and you'll get like a sandy texture to your cheese sauce or to your soup, and that's not what we want. So sometimes I see recipes, or kids will pick recipes in class that call for you to like put the milk in with the vegetables right now and bring it to a boil and all of these things. And I just am always leery of those recipes because I don't want it to separate and for that texture to change. Now, I don't know if you can see this on the video, but it's already starting to thicken. And if you had chunks from the roux in there, you would want to really, really mix them to break up those chunks, but mine doesn't seem very chunky. So here we go. Wow, this is going really quick. Sometimes it takes a really long time, and in class, a lot of times kids will cook real low because they're nervous about separating the sauce, and that's good until you get a hang of it and you know what temperatures. Like, my oven's different here than the ones at school. Your oven at home is probably different. Some of you might have gas. All of those things like change how long this would have to happen for. So I'm starting to get, oh my goodness, this is a glorious little sauce. I hope you can see it. See how it coats my spatula? It doesn't just run off of there. So I think it's perfect now to start adding the cheese. I don't know if you can see the consistency of it. Now I'm nervous of overdoing it, and I feel like my oven's a little hot, so I'm turning it down all the way to 2. And now I'm going to add the cheese in. Now this part is where you have to kind of be patient. I'm just going to do a handful of cheese at a time. I think I just got that all over me. Handful of cheese at a time, because if you add all of the cheese at once and you don't take the time to mix it into your sauce and melt it down completely, what you're going to end up with is like a big glob of cheese in the middle of your sauce, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to switch from my whisk now, because this is really getting thick, to my rubber scraper again, just so I can make sure I'm getting the bottoms and the edges and I'm mixing it fast enough. So I'm probably going to add one more handful of cheese here. And I'll just save the rest of that. There we go, look at that. I hope you can see this. So there's my thick cheese sauce. Now if you wanted to, you could put this on some noodles, and that would be your macaroni and cheese. The one thing I didn't add to this is salt and pepper, but I already salted my vegetables, and I also have that broth in there, which is salty. So I want to make sure that I don't over season. So I always think whenever we make macaroni and cheese in school that you guys don't use enough salt in it. So taste it, always taste what you're making, and adjust your seasonings as you go. Now I'm taking it off the heat because now I'm going to get back to my soup. I'm just going to let this hang out while I finish up what I need to do with the soup. So let's go back over there. Okay, so here's my soup. Vegetables in the broth. A lot of the broth cooked out, so I'm actually going to add a little bit more because with as thick as my cheese sauce is, I want it to be soup-like, and I still have to add broccoli and carrots to this. So let's see where we're at. So to check for doneness, all you want to do is grab some vegetables and you want to stab a fork in. This one's really, the potatoes are nice and soft. The potatoes are the biggest, densest of the vegetables in here. So that's what I would worry about most. I would just move on at this point and do the next step. But you could also check your carrots if you wanted to, and your celery. You want them to be fork tender, and that means that the fork slides in very easily. There's no resistance. It's not going to be crunchy when you eat it. So those vegetables are perfect. Next, I'm just going to throw in the broccoli and the cauliflower. Oh my gosh, broccoli and corn. I'm losing my brain. So they can kind of melt in and warm up because, like I said, they are frozen. Now, if vegetable soup is not your thing, you could take this soup and add some protein to it. You could put some ham in it. That would be really good. You could do bacon pieces in it. That would be very good. Even chicken in here would be really good. So that's the thing about soup. You can build up those flavors and kind of make it however you want. So we'll just let those cook for a minute. I kind of want to see that broth bubble again. Okay, I'm really trying not to melt this tripod on my stovetop. All right, so you can see the broccoli starting to thaw out a little bit. The corn looks nice and good. The broth is starting to bubble again. So here's my vegetable mixture, and it's ready for this glorious, beautiful, delicious cheese sauce. I know the lighting wasn't great before, but that's what it looks like at the end. And so now I'm just going to add this to it. I'm going to turn off the heat, actually. And I'm just going to pour my cheese sauce in. Look at that. Oh my gosh. All right, we're gonna stir that in, and it's gonna kind of thin out into the soup, and that's exactly what we want. Look at that. A beautiful, creamy, cheesy vegetable soup. I mean, it doesn't get much better, does it? It's so yummy. Okay, so I just ate a bowl of it for dinner. And after it cooled a little bit, I took the first bite and definitely needed a little salt. So I added that to it. And it was really, really, really good. I wanted to point out that when you cook vegetables, they do lose some nutrients. And when you cook them in the liquid that you are going to be eating, so in a soup, for instance, you're going to eat that broth that they're cooking in, the vegetables that are lost into the broth, you will still be getting them when you are eating the broth of the soup. So soups are very healthy for you. They're great for your immune system. That's why when you get sick, people always offer you chicken noodle soup because of all the great vitamins and minerals that are in it. When I was eating this soup, I thought, you know, it would really be good with it. A nice crusty like loaf of French bread to like dip in it. So I'm going to work on maybe making some bread. And then when I eat these leftovers, I'll have some bread with them. So that's my soup evaluation. Hope you're having a great day. Fig is jealous she didn't get to eat any. All right. Bye-bye.